social networking as a term is basically the practice of using social media to form connections and discuss topics online. When we say social listening, it's basically and clearly is the definition of listening to public conversations on social networks based on specific topics. Social tracking is something similar. However, we track is the definition of listening to public conversation as well, but among specific group of people or communities. What we can predict from social media data and from data that are collected from social networks. Definitely, we can predict anything, but with different prediction confidence. Can we predict misinformation? Only if you're planning to spread any kind of misinformation, you predict it. But otherwise, you cannot predict it. But you maybe can predict things that might lead to discovering misinformation at early stages. If you have enough information about what are the characters that are leading to a revolution, then yes, open data provides availability of the data, reuse, so data can be reused, universal participation and interoperability of the data, so anyone can use it. But the thing is that having an open data platform that is based on social media data is something unusual, because it's always related to how credible the data might be, and the challenge of having spam and fake news and so on online. It's something that's really critical in this area. Data for Crisis, as I mentioned, is an open data platform that gets data from online platforms, social network platforms, and analyze them and put them online for free to be used in different formats and in different aspects. And mainly, this platform can be very beneficial for journalists, for researchers, for media practitioners, for media outlets, and for students, and as well as trainers that are seeking getting data about the topics that we're covering right now. What the platform covers: raw and aggregated data with flexible filters, advanced interactive visualizations and topics, different stories and visualization categories, deep analytics about emotions and speech. And this is one of the main complexity of the findings of this platform, where we were able to find emotions among conversations. And when it comes to emotions, I think some of you might be in the field of natural language processing and things like that. You might understand how complex it is to understand feelings and emotions from a conversation that might be shared natively and with a slang language, and in different contexts and age groups. A little bit advanced also filters and analysis controllers, as well as deep analytics, a little bit more about like an explorer for more exciting visualizations and data, and unique annotation experience for journalists if they want to use it as a standalone platform to get to print out something about the topic that we're sharing about. A sneak peek of the new release. So this is actually something from the administration dashboard. This is not actually the data that are online, so you can find online. This is basically some kind of filters also about, like, for instance, 80% of the sources and the data that we're getting about migrants, and 34% about the hosting communities. And you might ask yourself how we were able to label if this is a migrant or this is a hosting community. The answer is, if we're tracking, they're already labeled, because we know that this is already a migrant, this is a hosting community. If we're listening, there are a lot of indicators and complexities to say that this might be, for instance, if we're targeting migrants from Russia, then this is Russian nationality, and he or she lives in Georgia, and this means, for instance, this is a migrant in Georgia. And the same for other migration, Syrian and other things. But there are a lot of things were covered using different technologies. This is some of the also a sneak peek from the dictionaries that we're using in our dashboards. As you might know, that we have different communities, different countries, different languages, different sources, as well as from a perspective of features, different analysis styles, different emotions, different occupations, and different topics. Those mainly producing almost or more than 90 million combinations that one can actually perform on the platform. Part of the challenges is the accuracy. The accuracy is also related, not just related to the findings from an emotional perspective or topics perspective. So sources, languages, and location filters when it comes to listening is one of the challenges as well.
The problem is that all those stories are individual stories, individual posts, something that I cannot generalize on whole community. And if I'm journalist, researcher, and I need to make sense of what's happening in this whole community, I need much more information, right? Bigger picture behind it. And I know that there are definitely talks happening in those migrant communities and Georgian communities about housing, visa policy, increasing prices, hate speech, and many other issues. I know that there are plenty of Telegram channels, Facebook channels, Twitter channels with tens of thousands of comments, millions of engagements from those communities around those really important issues, right? Like this. So we have evidence, empirical data to analyze public discourse. But of course, as a journalist alone, I cannot analyze big data. That's why you have Forset and Ali in your service. So as you can see, we have mostly focused on community groups and community pages because there are pure discussions around migrant issues. We also focused on online media, influencing accounts, NGO CSOs, and web forums. We, of course, excluded all political sources, such as political parties, because there would be high engagement from bots and trolls, which would definitely manipulate our data. After monitoring all these 215 data sources, we have identified 149 keywords in English, Georgian, and Russian around migration, so that we know that all the data we analyze from these data sources are related to migration, and all the data we present later on platform is related to only migration and not about something else. Let's talk about how you as a journalist or researchers could use such a portal in Georgia, Kazakhstan, or elsewhere, maybe in the future. What you can do is that once the portal is ready, this is a screenshot from Ali's previous portal. What you can do is that you can go to the portal and see which topics were trending in either in migrants community or host communities. Was it politics? Was it religion, economics, visa policy, housing, or something else? You could also check engagement in specific period of time. And I hope it will be helpful for journalists in Georgia and also Kazakhstan to provide more evidence-based stories and more insightful stories and more comprehensive stories.
Social listening project provides like big data, right? So you can actually get more insights about what people actually think on the internet. And this is different from, for example, surveys or other online questionnaires, because sometimes people, if you survey people, they might feel that they need to answer a certain way. They might feel hesitant to participate in the survey. But when we use the social listening, we actually see what they write on their personal pages, what they actually think. So from Kazakhstani side, what we have done by now is that we also gathered some data sources. There are like 36 Facebook groups and accounts, 28 Twitter accounts, 17 websites, 16 YouTube channels, and also Telegram. Most of the migrant groups are located on Telegram, and they're actually, I think, there's a Telegram group for like every city of Kazakhstan, almost. Not every city, but every large city of Kazakhstan, where migrants cooperate, and there are also local citizens who help migrants with different issues. So the criteria was that we chose both state and independent media sources, and we also checked personal accounts of different popular bloggers, and we also entered some social groups. For example, those Telegram channels, right? By now, there are 57 migrant sources and 69 hosting sources. There are also search terms, keywords that we identified, like 133 keywords that this AI project will use to find some information, to gather data.
Obviously, we know that there's a bunch of fake accounts. We know that there are trolls, sometimes directed from Kremlin or other authoritarian regimes. And of course, there are the AI bots. There's an account, but it posts something, and it's probably artificial intelligence producing some text content. How do you identify them? How does your algorithm know that this is an actual human being which has their sentiments about Russian migrants and not some troll in Kremlin writing whatever?
Thank you, Haik. So this is a very interesting question, which I was expecting to be the first one. Basically, when it comes to the sources, if we're tracking, as I mentioned, there's a huge difference between tracking and listening. So if we're tracking, everything that we're tracking is not a bot because they were initially gathered. But when it comes to listening, there actually would be the challenge. And even though when we're tracking, replies might be also formed via bots. And Spotifying internet bots is not something very hard, because there is a lot of I would say specifications for bots that, like, for instance, I mean, I don't know if there's, I believe that there's no like AI mechanisms that actually run bots. There are definitely AI things that run, that generate texts, but things when it comes to bots, it's something like which can be automated, and automation is basically create a routine, and routines can be discovered easily.
When we enter this data into the system, we actually check whether these accounts, how recently they were created. There's an instrument called Botometer that can analyze accounts on Twitter, basically identifying whether these accounts behave themselves as bots.
What is the most astonishing discovery of the research? Like, it can be a correlation, it can be some dramatic growth rate of whatever that is, any of the social groups, any of the trends, anything that really caught your attention?
If there is just any type of post in Russian migrants groups, pretty much a lot of engagement about, I don't know, food, restaurants. When it comes to any post relating to, I don't know, donations, or when there is a keyword occupation or war on Ukraine, either zero engagement or 5, and from Georgians who are also member of these groups. And this was so sad. And it's really interesting to research that case furthermore. Maybe it's just few platforms, but in other platforms, they freely engage in posts which are about war and occupation.
I think one of the main usage of the data available, because this data can be used in different ways, and it's a raw data, so you can use it from different perspectives, from Russian, from Georgian, from Kazakh's perspective, or from any other perspective. This topic might be sensitive, and the sensitivity of this topic depends on how people they feel free to share those opinions on different social media platforms, and they might not be covered on the data that we're collecting. They might be actually covered, but they might not be covered within a migration terms. Let me clarify it as well, because even though we're targeting this community, but there are like search terms that are that actually they're forming the first layer of filtering. So anything related to migration within this community is being published on this platform. Anything else which is not related to migration, even though from the same community, is not being online. So this is one of the things that should be clearly defined as well.
If I were a journalist, I would totally, choose one of these topics. Again, let's take the real estate. I would get the actual hard data, from the government, from the statistics office, from the real estate companies, and then I would try to find not a correlation, not with the purpose like bias of find correlation, but I would actually also do a analysis of the results of that research, see what people actually gossip or talk about, what they feel, what their sentiments are, and then I would build a story around that.